Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Locked in Tomb and Was the Scorpion Emperor Part 2. Chapter 11. Issei woke up around 8 am, a few hours later than he would normally wake up. As soon as he awoke he felt sore. His chest ached in certain locations, generally in the pecs and the shoulder. His stomach groaned in pain with each movement and his face wasn't feeling very well either. He then remembered what had happened the night before. Issei was assaulted with multiple attacks from a leader-class fallen angel. His body had been battered by a knuckle duster formed by the power of the light, which was backed by the power held by the fallen angel. He then suffered multiple slashes with a light spear sword before he was impaled in the shoulder. Only his experience as a gladiator saved him as he ignored the pain and fought on until one of them would have fallen. He looked around him and spotted Rias, Akeno and now Kaneko who was curled up around his body, all three of them naked. He looked down at his chest and wondered how he healed so fast, but figured it was why Kaneko was in his bed and why all three of them were naked, considering Akeno was a fan of using negligee. They helped me heal, I don't deserve them, I almost got them killed. Issei thought, his face looking darker and deeper into despair, only to feel a hand on his chest which got him out of his stupor. You are making such a dark face, you really shouldn't, Rias said softly. Issei noticed that Akeno and Rias were both awake. I almost got you all killed, I was too weak, I was too bold, too stupid, Sona was right. I'm worthless. Sona was right that we went too boldly into the fight without thinking, but even she agreed the plan was good. She also agreed that this was the best option. Rias said. You didn't almost get us all killed. Akeno stated. You are the reason why we are all still alive. You saved us all from those creatures and you defeated Kakabiel. You aren't weak. Kaneko said softly, shifting a bit higher on his right leg which she snuggled as she was between his two legs. You stood against the fallen angel and survived. You also killed him. He could have killed me easily. Only because you threw away your shield to save another. You were selfless in that fight and no one will forget that. Akeno stated smiling. Trust us, you aren't weak. She said, patting his chest before sitting up and getting out of bed. Kaneko and Rias followed. Let us treat you to some breakfast. Plus you have to meet your two new peerage members when they are ready. Rias said, dressed in a pair of red track pants and a red t-shirt that hugged her curves. Akeno wore matching purple clothing. Kaneko wore a pair of black shorts and a white t-shirt that had a cat's paw print on it. Two new members. You revived Irina as she died in the battle against Kakabiel and then Zenobia decided to join you. I hold some of my original power as a king, so I revived her for you. You're welcome. Rias stated with a smile. I see. Issei said, sitting up before he went to get dressed. He was naked in the bed at the time. Rias and Kaneko left with Akeno staying behind as she waited for Issei to finish getting dressed. Akeno walked behind him as they went off to the clubhouse kitchen. You didn't even get hard except in the morning, are you even attracted to women? Akeno asked, curiosity in her tone. Of course I am attracted to women. I just have a lot of self-control due to my conditioning. I see, do you not find us attractive then? Akeno asked. You ask that because I do not get hard around you females. Issei asked only for Akeno to nod silently. I find all of the females I've seen attractive. I don't know what happened, but people have gotten even more attractive since I was a gladiator. Even with the fact all the women nowadays wear clothes everywhere, you guys are more attractive. So it has nothing to do with how pretty you are. You are all very pretty women, I just have a lot of conditioning to avoid getting hard. I see. Akeno said with a smile. Guess we just have to get you laid. Okay. Issei said with a shrug. He wasn't even saying no, which got Akeno to raise an eyebrow at his response. What? Just because I don't get a hard-on doesn't mean I don't have an interest in hex. I'm a virgin because I refuse to be like the other gladiators or people back then. Consider it spite for my master. I refuse to even pleasure the women that he told me to. I have no problem bucking the women in my life. I have no one to spite. No reason to refuse. You don't believe in saving yourself for love. That's a thing. Issei said, raising an eyebrow. Akeno nodded. Well no, I don't believe that. I don't consider hex a treasured act. It's an act of pleasure or reproduction. I am from a different time, Akeno. Issei said. The two of them were standing in the hallway, facing each other as Issei leaned against a wall. I don't believe in the things you guys do. I told you that I honestly don't see a need for clothing or a fear of nudity. Times are different, but if you ever want to have hex, just ask or come and try to initiate it. You are a very beautiful woman and someone I treasure dearly. Akeno nodded happily and with a smile, she hugged his neck and kissed his cheek before heading off to breakfast. Issei followed her very shortly after. Issei grabbed a quick breakfast out of what Rias and the others made, thanking them for the food. He had grabbed a plate of eggs, sausage and toast before he left, saying he was going to go train. He gave them the location through the magic circle, saying that if they come they were to prepare for extreme cold. With that Issei teleported away. A few minutes after, Zenobia and Irina came from their own sleeping quarters within the old schoolhouse, with Irina looking very distraught. Zenobia had explained several things to her and she wasn't taking them well. "You don't look well," Rias stated. "You alright?" "Why yes just," Irina started. "You're having trouble coming to the fact you are a devil since you were part of the church beforehand," Rias stated as if she was right. Irina just nodded while Zenobia placed a hand on her shoulder. "She was a bigger devoted Christian than even myself. This will be tough for her," Zenobia said quietly. "Even I am having problems coming to the fact that even I chose to be a devil." "Why did you even chose to be one?" Irina questioned loudly, turning to Zenobia with anger in her eyes. "I will not have any of that fighting in my clubhouse," Rias stated. She summoned a magic circle and also placed a magic circle on their backs. "You can do this with your new master. Issei waits on the other side. Now go," Rias said, shooing them away as she returned to their dinner. It was then Zenobia just shoved Irina into the circle and let the circle disperse, heading to the breakfast table. Akeno had a hard time holding in her laughs, seeing what Zenobia just did. "Thought it was best for her to talk to Issei just has a way," Zenobia said with a shrug. "Fair enough," Rias stated, returning to her breakfast. Upon arrival, Irina was pelted with a massive blizzard which she began to block her face from. She stepped forward a few steps and found herself inside of a tent which was really warm. She looked around and saw nothing only to hear a voice. She had somehow missed it, but Issei was on the ground on his back in the snow, lifting a large boulder. "So, you are awake," Issei said with a grunt, continuing to lift the boulder up and down with both of his hands, grunting with each push-up. "Yay, thanks to you," Irina said quietly, watching the shirtless devil work out in such a deadly environment. "Wouldn't it be better to do this in a gym?" "I prefer it my way," Issei said. "But it's so barbaric." "Barbaric? Is that what you consider me to be? A barbarian?" Issei asked, chucking the rock away from him and slowly sitting up, brushing off the snow as he walked into the tent. "What, I know. It's just normal people work out in gyms." "Well, I'm not a normal person. I remember now you and Rias talked about you being nice to Zenobia and she said it wasn't ancient Rome anymore." "Ah, so you remember things. Well, if you want to know, I can tell you. What did she mean by all of that? I was born over 2,000 years ago as a human. I was taken from my home on a slave ship, taken halfway across the world to Italy, or back then it was known as the Roman Empire. I was sold to a man who trained me to be a gladiator. I fought in arenas to the death all for the pleasure of the crowd. After a while I rebelled and I escaped from being a slave, forming an army of gladiators. I fought back against the Roman Empire, but I lost. My master made a pact with a devil who trapped me inside of a stone sarcophagus. I was in that sarcophagus for 2 years, awake for all of it. I was released by Ria's brother and a few other higher-powered people. So, that's what she means is because I have yet to let go of the world I knew. You became a devil even though devils were the ones who hurt you. Not of my free will. At first, I actually held Akeno hostage with a knife to her throat. I was planning to kill her at one point," Issei said with a smile. "Man, only been a few weeks and things have changed. How fun," Issei said quietly. "But now I am proud to be where I am. I am happy. I have people who care for me, I am no longer bound to chains, and I have so much more freedom. But the church says devil are bad. I didn't have the church back when I was a slave, so I wasn't brought up to think that way. I am able to think my own thoughts about things and form my own opinion. Are you not happy?" "No. I am an avid believer of the Bible, and now I am what my mortal enemies were. God would never forgive me." "How can you be so sure?" "If I was this God and people worshipped me I wouldn't care where my worship came from. I wouldn't care about someone was born or what was forced upon them. I would care about what was in their heart," Issei said, placing his hand upon her left breast which was above her heart. "And I see a woman who has given her all to be a good person and to follow her own beliefs. I see a woman who is strong, confident and beautiful. God won't care about you becoming a devil. He would only care that you do what is right," Issei said with a smile, placing the hand that was on her chest to her head, gently rubbing her. Irina was blushing madly, her violet eyes looking up at Issei with worship. "You are right," Irina said with her old enthusiasm. "God won't care. He knows that I love him. Dear God in heaven, forgive my bad thoughts. Amen," Irina stated, only to yelp in pain as she held her head and went into a crouch. Seems I have more work to do," Issei said quietly before he walked around Irina. "I think it's time I return to my training. Fighting Kakabiel revealed that I need to be stronger. Faster. Just better than I was the day before. I must continue to rise in power." Irina nodded. "I will help you. If you wish," Issei said, giving her a magical boost so she wasn't cold. From there on, they trained together. Even Irina did a little training to her body. Chapter 12. Irina and Issei returned from Mount Everest around 7 in the evening. Dinner was being prepared to be put away by Akeno and Rias when they came from a magic circle. Didn't expect you to take so long to talk with Issei. Rias said with a smile. Enjoy yourself. Very talking with Issei has given me a reason to continue to exist. Irina said happily. Issei shrugged and quickly helped himself to a plate of the Italian dressing pork and mashed potatoes, which Irina copied him and sat down. They even trained me with a sword despite no longer having one. We'll get you a strong sword. Issei said with a chuckle. You are doing much better with your sword attacks, I am proud of you. I only learn from the best. Issei shook his head. I don't think I am the greatest sword fighter at all. I don't even think my style of fighting is perfect either. I just think that most of what you are taught isn't good either. Battle experience is what you need. Reflexes, endurance, and just plain old experience. Once you get into enough battles, you learn your own style. Just take your time, train with your sword, and you'll become really good. Okay Issei. Irina said only to blush when Issei patted her head before he returned to his meal. He doesn't even realize how much of a good man he is. All three present females thawed as they looked at him eat. It was then Rias remembered something. Oh Issei. I just remember that you have a devil contract waiting for you. Devil contract? Issei asked, not sure what those were. It's basically a way for the Devil Society to gain more power. It's possible that we can get new devils through a contract. Akeno said. It's also a way to rank up in Devil Society. I see who requested me. Wasn't you specifically, but the wish was for a great and powerful devil to help them. They would prefer a swordsman. We instantly thought of you. Ria said with a shrug. I see. Well, I will go do it after dinner. Can you prep a magic circle for me please? Issei asked, which Rias obliged and set one up. Issei quickly finished his meal and walked into the magic circle, letting out a loud burp as soon as he arrived through the circle. Issei, you're a devil, Murayama exclaimed. Issei was surprised at seeing them but didn't show much. Oh well, hello ladies. Issei said with his very warm smile. I am very much a devil. Is that why you are so good at being a swordsman? Cadis said with a pout, feeling like Issei was cheating. Nope. I was actually born 2000 years ago in the Roman Empire. Really? The pink-haired Cadis asked. Issei nodded and took a seat on the couch of Cadis. You don't mind, do you? She shook her head towards him sitting down. So, any questions or shall we get to the contract? Can we do both? I don't see why not. Issei said once more with his warm smile. You were born in the Roman Empire? So you are 2000 years old. Well, for the first question, I was born in Japan actually. I was just taken into slavery at a young age. I don't even remember what my parents looked like. I have no memories of them. As for the second question, technically I can be considered 2000 years old, but I was trapped in a tomb for well over 1900 years, and I didn't age. I was still human at the time until I was released, which then I became a devil. Issei said, sipping on some tea brought out by Murayama. Quite good. Issei stated. So, you were a slave? Murayama asked. How did you get so good with a weapon? Well, during the Roman Empire, what were the biggest things about Rome that would have incorporated weapons? The army? Cadis asked. Issei stated. It was then silent for about 30 seconds. You were a gladiator? Murayama said. Bingo. Issei said, point to Murayama. I was trained at a very young age to fight, kill and survive. I became undefeated and basically, it was how I am so good today with my gladius. You've killed people? Cadis asked weakly. Yes. I've had to kill people to survive, and I've killed people to save my friends, and I've killed people because they had to die. Issei stated. Do you think of me as a bad person now? Issei asked, a bit sorrowful. Murayama shook her head. No. I can't consider you a bad person. I've seen how you are at school. You are kind to others and you don't act with selfishness from what I've seen. You care for others and you treated us with respect and kindness. You apologize when you make mistakes. I agree. We are just surprised as also what is being a devil like. At first I didn't care for it and I even threatened the lives of my current friends, but eventually I started to enjoy my life. I really enjoy my life right now. I have a lot of people who care for me and that I care for. I have a lot of fun as a devil, though it's still difficult to accept that everything I once knew has changed. I never knew that people view nudity as bad. Where I came from, nudity was so wildly accepted that it was everywhere. Women weren't afraid to get naked and sex wasn't treated as something to be feared or hated. Issei said with a sigh. Slavery seems to have changed greatly but still remains in the world. Issei then looked up at the girls and chuckled. I've gotten off topic. To answer your question about what being a devil is like, I think it's great. You have enhanced durability, reflexes, speed, strengths. Basically everything is enhanced. The only thing is, devils do have weaknesses. The light. Not the sun but the power of light. It's generally what the church uses and our enemies. Murayama and Caddis listened closely, seeing as Issei was reminiscing about his past. After he finished his explanations, his attention once again disappeared from them and focused on something else, most likely his past. It was then the two girls looked at each other, nodded and stood up. They removed the shirts they wore and revealed their lacy bras, Caddis wearing a black one while Murayama wore pink. Issei's attention was reverted back to them due to the changing colors in his peripheral vision, and he raised his right eyebrow as they dropped their bras. "We're going to go take a swim in the pool. Join us," Murayama stated. Caddis nodded and they left the room. Issei stood up and followed them shortly, his eyes looking over their bodies for about 2 seconds before he returned his eyes towards their direction. Both women noticed his eyes and they shared a smile. They walked out of the house to the backyard of Caddis' house, only for Issei to spot a decent-sized pool that could hold about 10 people comfortably. They removed their pants and underwear in one go, though they both did it slow enough to see if they could arouse Issei, and while they noticed he didn't get hard, his attention did drip to their bottoms. With a smile, they walked into the pool and relaxed against one side. "Join us," Caddis stated, and Issei shrugged a bit before he removed his shirt and tossed it aside and removed his socks before removing his pair of shorts and underwear, dropping them aside before he made his ascent in the water. Both of the women were eyeing him with lust, enjoying the sight of his masculine body and his delectable third leg. "Is this what you want as a contract?" Issei asked curiously. He sounded more confused than anything. "Part of it. We wanted some sword training, but that can wait. You enjoy time with us, right?" Murayama asked, her breasts hanging over the waterline. "I sure do," Issei said with a warm smile, his eyes focusing on her own. They both noted he was pretty much the perfect gentleman when it counted, but was also a man that enjoyed the sight of a woman's body, which made these two ladies very happy. They both moved and took a seat on either side of Issei with Caddis sitting to his left. He had gotten a good full frontal view of the curtains and the window to a much better world. Murayama placed a hand on his chest and traced a very deep and old scar. "How did you get this one?" "It was my first battle. I took an axe blade in my chest and I was lucky it didn't do much but break my bones. I sliced open his thigh and both of us were unable to battle at the end. Was a draw," Issei said, looking down at her lithe hands on his chest, only to feel Caddis also map out his chest and abdomen with her own left hand, tracing his muscles and scars. "You've been hurt so much," the pink-haired lady said quietly, only to stop at a scar that looked fresh. "You just earned this one," she stated. "About a day ago actually. I fought one of the leaders of the fallen angels, who are one of the enemies that the devils have." "You fought a leader like the boss?" Murayama said, very surprised. "Yup. I almost lost my life, as did almost all of my friends. In the end though, it was he who lost his life. I won." "Wow, your life doesn't sound very fun." "Small lemon alert. I enjoy combat," Issei stated. "Even if I have an aversion to being a gladiator, I can't deny the fact I enjoy fighting, though I'd prefer it if it wasn't to the death. Which is lucky for me because the devils have something similar to the gladiators in the form of a raiding game. It's basically a fight between groups of people versus another group. It's not to the death happily though accidents happen." "I see," Caddis said quietly. "So is combat the only thing you enjoy?" "Of course not," Issei replied. "I enjoy spending time with friends, including you guys. I enjoy training others and just being a helpful person. I enjoy sleeping, food that I can indulge in since I couldn't back then. Training myself," he said, listing off the things he enjoyed only to feel a hand upon his hick which would stroke it up and down. The hand was from Murayama who was looking up at him. Issei however continued without missing much of a beat, though he had stopped for about 3 seconds. "I also enjoy reading and learning. I'm enjoying my time at school. Ooh. And I also, enjoy music," Issei said, stifling a moan in the middle of the talk. "And do you enjoy women?" Caddis asked, her right hand snaking around Murayama's hand before gently cupping his balls, stroking him. "I can't say I do as I've never had a woman," Issei stated. "Though I am attracted to them." "Why?" Issei asked. "Want to see if you enjoy women as well?" Murayama asked with a seductive smile as she gently massaged his tip. "You can use us both to find out," she said, emphasizing on the word use as Caddis climbed into his lap, his hick trapped between her thighs as Murayama stroked what wasn't trapped. "Why would you want that?" Issei asked. "Isn't hex supposed to be taboo?" Issei said. "Are you denying our offer?" Caddis asked with surprise. "Well, I am in your world and I must assimilate," Issei stated before hugging Caddis, his head pressed against her chest, but it was over her heart. "You guys pity me, don't you? You haven't shown any interest until today. When you learned about me. We just wanted to make you happy," Murayama said, no longer stroking him. "I am happy, but I don't want you guys to give yourselves up to me because you pity me. Give yourselves up to me because you wish to have hex with me," Issei said with a smile. You are very attractive young ladies, but I have no interest in having hex out of pity. I want to do it because it would be fun and pleasurable. He said before placing Caddis next to him before he climbed out. I shall take my leave tonight. I shall fulfill your contract tomorrow, alright? Issei said. The two girls nodded, and with that, Issei got dressed and teleported away. Lemon over. Upon arriving home, he collapsed into bed and fell asleep quickly. Morning came and Issei and the others began walking to school. Zenobia and Irina were behind him with Akeno and Rias on either side of him. Kaneko was walking behind Issei as well, but in front of the church duo. As Issei arrived at school, he felt a powerful aura nearby and he stopped moving, the others girls stopping as well. So, this is where the fight took place. It's a large school, said a silver-headed male. So it is, Issei said cautiously, his eyes gauging the foe ahead. A scorpion, I take it. Your name is on everyone's tongue right now with the death of Kakabiel at your hands. Quite an invigorating name. Any relation to the Roman scorpion? The same. Who might you be? Issei asked, stepping forward and leaning against the bridge's railing. Vali, the White Dragon Emperor. Also known as the Vanishing Dragon. I see. Good to meet you. Issei stated, the others behind him were getting antsy. As if a fight was going to break out. Your peerage seems to want to attack me. Well, considering who you are, who you work for, and the fact you just randomly appear is very suspicious. Issei stated. I can't really blame them, though they don't have the instinct we do. Guys, you can stand down. The man before you has no interest in fighting me, at least right now. He's correct. Vali said, walking away from them. I have much more important things to do. He said before disappearing. Issei frowned a bit as he stared at Vali, feeling the immense power coming from the boy. I have so much more to go. Chapter 13. Issei walked with the girls into the school grounds but ended up stopping at the staircase. His focus was within his head, thinking about his options, and it was when Rias hugged him tightly that he woke up. Arias. Issei said in surprising, giving her a hug back. You seemed out of it and you ignored me calling your name, so I thought hugging you was a good idea. Well, it got my attention. What's on your mind? The White Dragon Emperor. Harshly, Rias. You trust me and my decisions, right? Rias nodded. For the most part. I'm still getting used to you as a king, but you are doing extremely well. Why? I need to leave for a week or two. Rias and the others were confused. Does this have something to do with meeting Vali? Akeno asked. Yay. I'm not strong enough. I could tell between the two of us he's much stronger than Kakabiel or I must go. It may not be Vali, but someone stronger could come and screw with us, and we're not prepared. Rias frowned and looked at Issei with concern on her face before nodding. You are the king, so you can make that decision for yourself, but I appreciate you asking for my permission. You are all my friends and family. I can't leave without warning. Rias smiled and kissed Issei on the cheek. Appreciated. Well, where do you plan on going? No idea. I will figure it out. All I know is, I am going to be training harder than ever. Will you be back by the summit? The summit? Oh right. Rias started. There is a meeting between the three factions in 10 days. You are requested to attend. I see, then that is 10 days I cannot waste. Please explain to Sona what is going on. There is no need. Sona said, walking down the steps. I heard it all. For one, I agree with you on this, and with the meeting coming, I have no doubt something is bound to go wrong. Call it a hunch, but the White Dragon Emperor will be an enemy. I agree, something about him makes me think he's going to be an enemy. His demeanor and just the way his power pours from him. Sona nodded. However, you will have to make up for all of the days you miss of school and keep up with school on top of that. I will do so. Thank you all. Issei said before walking off into the old schoolhouse to teleport away in his magic circle. Issei appeared through his magic circle in a barren wasteland that reminded Issei of the destruction of a volcano. Ash and scorched rock everywhere. I didn't teleport here, Issei said, frowning. I went to Antarctica. He said, prepping another magic circle in which he went through only to find himself a few feet away. Issei scrunched his eyebrows. It seems either I am shitty at teleportation magic or someone else has intervened. Either way, I'm not happy. Issei said with a frown, deciding to walk in a straight line, deciding to head opposite of the ocean that he was hearing. After an hour of walking, Issei came upon a small town that was actually bustling as traders would peddle their merchandise, which was mostly different fish, bread and dairy products like cheese. It was an open-air market. There was a sense of joy throughout the city, and the citizens were all pretty much smiling. Issei decided to explore for a bit, perhaps find out a bit about the area. He entered a building that he couldn't read, despite the devil powers allowing him to speak the language, it didn't count towards the written language. As he entered, he immediately saw three things. Naked women, booze and gambling. This is interesting. All three of these in a single building reminds me of my master's home. He said with a bitter tone in his head towards the end of his thought. Excuse me, sir. Repeated the completely naked woman before him. She seemed to be a hostess of some sort. My apologies. Issei said with a slight bow in his head. I am lost. He said with a bitter smile. Lost? Don't worry about it. So what would you like to ask? Issei asked, tilting his head. I was wondering what you are here for. The woman asked. She was a tall blonde woman with decent-sized breasts, about the size of Zenobia. She looked foreign, but not from any country he was aware of. I'm not even sure where I am. I'm not from this country. He said with another bow of his head. You are in Valhalla's gentleman club. We are a strip club to be blunt, but we also have entertainers, gambling, and drinking. The woman said, motioning to the bar, the stage, the gambling tables and other rooms behind doors. I see. Issei said, his eyes wandering around the place. I'll take an entertainer and some booze. Issei said, his eyes still looking around. Right this way. She said with a smile. I will hand you a list of the available entertainers. Awesome. Issei said, entering the room which smelt of bleach and lemons. It's been recently cleaned. Issei thought before the woman came back and handed him a menu which he began to have a hard time reading, only to smile weakly. I am afraid I don't know your language in the written form. I apologize. Oh, not at all, sir. We have about 5 entertainers, including one that is brand new. She just started an hour ago. I'll take her then. Issei said, not aware of what an entertainer meant. Issei looked through the one-way glass windows at the crowd before he sulked back into his reclining chair, noticing it was also kind of like a bed. Interesting, he noted before his expression turned sour. Why am I stuck here? What is causing this disruption? Has to be someone I've met before, but who? It was then his attention was brought back to the real world as a young beautiful woman entered his room and stood before him. She had a lot of magical energy that Issei could sense, but that wasn't what was strange. It was her entire being. She had long straight silver hair and light blue eyes. She looked really young, about the same age as Issei, maybe a few years older. She had a decent-sized bust that was close in size to Zenobia's, and she was quite tall. She was taller than any of the women of his peerage. She was wearing an armor-like outfit. She wore a white breastplate with gold and pale blue accents, with matching fingerless gauntlet, boots, hip guards and hair clips shaped like a wing. She also had the same wing-shaped clips on her boots. She began to strip down as Issei kept watch, noting that she wore a black leotard, black thigh-high stocks with a pale blue cloth wrapped around her hip. She also had pink lacing around her stockings and her hair clips. She finished undressing and bent over the table in front of Issei, revealing her pink hussy to him, though she spread her butt cheeks for him, revealing even more of her body. I am at your use. Ah, so this is what they meant by entertainer. Guess I should have figured. Issei said with a sigh. Look, I have no interest in having sex with you. I apologize. Issei stated, only for the girl to look over her shoulder at him, remaining in her position. Hey, are you sure? Absolutely. I am new to this land and I didn't understand what this place was, nor what entertainer meant. Nothing to do with you as you are an exceptionally beautiful woman. I thank you for the praise. She said quietly. It was then Issei noticed the fear in her eyes and her shaking. Tell me something, do you believe in magic? Issei asked, raising an eyebrow. It was like a secret code and the woman immediately sat up. You're from the magical world. She stated, finally feeling the magical energy. I am. I could sense you were. My name is Isseihyoudou. May I know the name of the beautiful woman who offered herself to me? The woman was flustered by Issei's words. Rossweisse. Oh. Such a lovely exquisite name. Issei said with a smile. Now tell me, you have such fear in your eyes and you were shaking while bent over the table. Why were you looking so scared? I wasn't scared. Just nervous. Don't lie to me. Issei stated with firm authority in his tone. I didn't really want to do it, but it was my job. Your job? Why take the job if you don't want to do it? Because my boss told me that if I don't get laid I will never get a boyfriend because I will always be a prude. He said that I should go work in a gentleman's club. She said, tears falling from her eyes, and Issei's sweat dropped a bit. Something told me this girl was a bit naive. Alright, well, take me to your boss so I can fix this for you. Issei said, standing up and offering out his arm to her, which she got dressed with magic and held onto his arm with both of hers. She was being walked out of the room when the server came by. Sir? You aren't supposed to take our workers away. I would appreciate it if you would just let us leave. Issei said with a big smile. This lovely young lady was forced into this line of work against her will, and I wouldn't want to have to get mean towards this lovely establishment. Issei said, his voice not even laced with any malice, but she could tell he meant it. Why yes. She said, walking away quickly to tell her boss what was going on. Issei chuckled and continued walking with a lovely lady on his arm when they neared the exit. It was then entering the establishment was a very old-looking man, but Issei could tell that he was a very powerful person. There was one more gentleman with the old man. This male had blonde hair to his shoulders and had a very powerful physique. Issei could tell he was also powerful, if not more powerful than the old man. That's the B-boss. Rossweisse said weakly, pointing to the old man. Issei smiled and patted her hand which she let go of him for and Issei walked up to the old man and before either could expect it, Issei decked the old-looking man in the nose, though it was Issei who was hurt by it mostly. Issei could feel a bruise coming upon his middle two knuckles, but Issei stood there without a sign of being injured. The man next to the old man quickly moved towards Issei to strike him, but the old man raised a hand before stroking his beard. Rossweisse behind him had her eye wide as she now feared for Issei's life. You strike with such passion and force, and you know that I am much more powerful than you. Why would you do such a thing? The old man asked. Simple. You told this lovely young lady some very rude things and forced her to work here. She had just given herself up to me. So? The old man said. Issei struck out quickly once more, striking the old man in the jaw with the same hand but no effect. You continue to strike me, this is becoming irritating. Irritating? The only irritating thing is you, old man. Old man? How dare you? I am the Viking god Odin. I am the king of Valhalla. Issei bent down to be face to face with Odin. Issei smiled. I don't care. This woman here looked at me with such fear in her eyes. She was scared. You made a woman scared and I don't like that. Apologize. Now. The blonde-haired man smiled a bit and looked at Issei, nodding a bit. I like this boy Odin. He has no fear towards you or I, and he obviously is trying to protect your goddaughter here. The man said. Odin nodded. I can see that. Well, I do apologize, young devil. The man said, teleporting all four of them away in a flash before anyone could see them. Plus there was some magic put up that the humans never even noticed them. I didn't mean for her to go and work here. It was only just my frustration with her. Your frustration? You insult this beautiful young lady and tell her to go get laid. Tell her to go be a prostitute. That's a bit too much, don't you think? Perhaps. Odin said, turning to Rossweisse. I apologize greatly for insulting you and telling you to do such things. It's fine, Odin. She said, straightening out her battle outfit. Issei nodded and began to look around his surrounding, finding himself in a huge city that looked very royal. I can see you are curious. Odin said, smiling. This here is Valhalla. Home to the Norse gods. Norse? Issei asked curiously. The other man smiled and nodded. Now I see. Odin, take a look at the man's chest. The man said. You are right, Thor. That is a scorpion stinger on his chest. Odin said, noting the stinger that was poking out of Issei's shirt. So you must be the infamous scorpion that is making waves through the magical world. I can now understand why you don't know who we are. Well, let me say this. We are just one pantheon of gods as there are others. You have the Egyptians, the Hindu, the Japanese, the Norse, and the Greeks. No Roman. Roman gods don't exist. Thor said. They were basically rehashes of the Greek gods. Sorry, kid. Thor said, shrugging. I see. Issei said with a frown. Well, I suppose that is it then. Time to try to figure out why I can't teleport away. Odin laughed a bit. It seems someone wanted you to come and meet me. Odin said. Someone put a spell that would take you to Norway where you have a big chance to meet me since I enjoy the human world so much. Not sure who but. Odin said, poking Issei with his staff. The spell is now removed. You can teleport as you please. Thank you, Odin. Issei said, bowing his head in respect. I like you, kid. You are full of spunk and we need more people like you in this world. Tell you what, for saving my dear Rossweisse I'll do something for you. Anything you want. Odin stated, grinning lecherously as he looked at Rossweisse. Anything. Anything. Odin said with a nod. Train me. Issei said, bowing his head once more. Train you? Odin repeated with surprise as he assumed Issei would take Rossweisse away from him, but this was new. Yes. I'm not strong enough to protect my family. I actually teleported away to do my own training, but seeing as you guys are all stronger than me, surely you training me would be better than my own training. Odin nodded. I am surprised at this request, but I will accept it. I will even do you better. I will train you as will Thor here and some others. How about it, boy? Can you take the training of the gods? Odin boomed, smacking his staff on the ground. Yes. I can take the training of the gods. Issei said, standing up straight. That's what I like to hear. Thor said with a cheer. I haven't trained anyone in a long while. This will be fun. Issei looked at the others. I only have 10 days. Odin nodded. The summit. Issei looked at him surprised. Anything you guys do we all know about, especially with all three of you together. If you only have 10 days, then 10 days you will have. I will even invite you back here afterwards for some more training, only because I really like you. Now boy, run. Odin boomed, swinging his staff down at Issei who jumped away thanks to Excalibur and ran off. Thor took his hammer and off he went to train Issei. Rossweisse turned to Odin who smiled at her. Seems your new boyfriend there is about to become even stronger. Do you really think of me that much that you would train this devil? Of course. You are my goddaughter after all. Even if you are a nuisance at times, I do care for you. I want what is best for you, which is why I was wondering. What is it? What do you think about becoming a devil? Chapter 14. Thor charged into Issei, only to be grabbed by his left arm and shoulder and thrown over Issei's own shoulder, sending Thor into the ground. Thor was then picked up by the nape of his neck and his crotch, only to be tossed into a group of pallets, Thor's back smashing the pallets. Thor laughed and sat up from his spot. You're quite amazing. You aren't able to do much against a god in terms of your power, but when I lower myself down to your level with magic, you kick my ass in hand to hand. Tell me, where did you learn how to fight? Thor asked as he grabbed onto Issei's hand and was lifted up. I was a gladiator for most of my life. Really? That sounds exciting. I can't say I didn't enjoy the arena, just didn't like my master nor the death that came with the arena. I've had to kill friends. Thor nodded. I understand. I don't know if I could handle killing my brothers or my father. Thor said with a smile. Round 2. Sure. I can give you some pointers if you'd like. Awesome. This could only improve my power and skill. Thor said with happiness. Odin watched from his throne as the two men fought in hand to hand. Odin watched as Thor was once again thrown like a rag doll over Issei's shoulder, but this time before Issei could throw him across the room, Thor used his legs and wrapped Issei's own legs, making him fall onto Thor. Only for Thor to have an elbow pressed against his neck quickly. Issei once again won the bout. Odin turned to Rossweisse, who was watching Issei with much interest. Odin smiled softly at his goddaughter and patted her hand. You never gave me an answer. Would you like to become a devil? You mean join him? If he has the available spot, yes. Odin said with a nod. But wouldn't that mean I wouldn't be your bodyguard anymore? You need a lot of training before you can even become as good as the others. Odin said flatly, which depressed Rossweisse. But, you have so much potential, you just need a good teacher. Something that I am not, but him. He has so much potential as well. His skill with anything put into his hands is amazing. He only needs to gain more power and he could easily become a god. Odin said with a smile. And he's even a good teacher. Plus I can see the blush on your face and the crush in your eyes. Do you like the boy? I do not. Absurd. Rossweisse said with a blush, looking away from the Allfather. Who are you lying to? Me or yourself? Or are you just afraid to admit you finally found a boy you have a crush on? Okay, yes, I like him. He's strong, brave, handsome, and he's super kind. Odin nodded. Yes. He's a one of a kind. Even I like a lot of his qualities. I could not be as bold or brave as he was. He punched me in the face because of what you went through, Odin said with a fond smile. I could happily leave you in his care. Though, are you able to handle the fact he has a harem? He does? Rossweisse asked. Indeed. Devils are known for their harems, though Issei is very different from the devils I have encountered. Generally, devils are well known for their lust. A lot of hex and gluttony, though, we hear in Valhalla are the same. Even I before meeting my wife had a harem at one point. Why did you give it up? I just did. Odin said with a shrug. Felt right with her, though. Even Thor here has multiple lovers at this time. Surely you know that. I do. So, can you handle that? I can try. Plus, maybe I like being with a woman. I never tried it. Odin laughed heartily and shook his head. You are a very strange woman, Rossweisse. You are eager to experience the world, and if it means being by his side, you're willing to do anything. Rossweisse blushed before looking at Odin. Why did you say he is different? He's still a virgin despite his immense age. A virgin? Are you sure? Yup. I am absolutely sure he hasn't had hex yet. So, what do you know about him? Do you know his story? Rossweisse shook her head and Odin nodded. Well, Issei is also known as the Scorpion. He was a slave for pretty much his entire life. He was a gladiator in Rome. I'm sure you know what that entails. Now, here is where it gets interesting. A devil befriended the master of Issei back in Rome, and basically, after Issei escaped, he was hunted down and imprisoned within a stone sarcophagus. Like Egypt. Exactly like Egypt. It was magically enhanced so he would never age, and so that he was awake for his imprisonment. Honestly, I'm very shocked he wasn't completely insane from his lockup. Though I think the magic used was weak anyway. Did he ever get revenge? I don't think so. I believe the devil is still alive, but I think the master is long dead. Odin said, which Rossweisse nodded in response. So that's his story, to put it simply. So he has a lot of self-control when it comes to women. That's why he didn't even get turned on by me, Rossweisse said, blushing madly from the images of what she did in front of Issei. Well, I will have to talk with him about you joining him. Can I do it instead? If that's what you wish. Just understand I love you just as I would my daughters. I want what is best, and this is something you want and something that I think is best. Thank you. Rossweisse said with a blush. It was late at night when Thor finally called it quits with Issei. Thor had learned a lot about Issei during their fight and Issei had taught him quite a bit about hand-to-hand combat. Thor ended up running off to the nearby pub in Valhalla to go see if there is a brawl to test his new skills in. In Valhalla, everyone was pretty much equal in strength. At least in certain buildings. Pubs were a place where everyone was equal, so no god or goddess could be a tyrant so to speak. Issei, who was currently leaning against the ledge of Odin's palace, looking out to the wonder city around them and the sky, when Odin approached him. "I guess you didn't get much training done today," Odin said. "Thor was supposed to train you, but it seemed you ended up training him," Odin said bitterly. "It's quite alright. I enjoy doing such things. Well, tomorrow you and I shall do some training with your sacred gear and magic. I am also going to teach you how to wield that holy sword's abilities properly. Then, you and Thor can do some physical training to increase your base strength. Am I worthy to receive a god's blessing? A god's training? Why do you ask that? Because I've done so much wrong in this world. I've almost let my friends die in a battle because I was too careless. I almost got myself killed which would have killed my friends as well. I've killed so many men who didn't deserve to die. Men who only wanted to survive another day. What make me so worthy?" Odin hummed and leaned against the same ledge, looking out at the city. "Beautiful isn't it?" Odin said with a smile before it got quiet for about a minute. "You say you aren't worthy, but I find you worthy." Odin said only to interrupt Issei with a raised hand. "You seek strength to protect your friends, not to kill people. You seek strength in order to keep peace. You were offered my goddaughter's virginity and body in that pub. I wouldn't have minded you taking it, but the fact that you didn't and you protected her from such a fate of being a prostitute meant a lot to myself. You refused to satisfy any lustful cravings that all men have in order to protect someone you just met. You walked up to someone clearly stronger than you who could kill you with a flick of his finger and punched him because of how rude he was to someone. You stood like a man in the face of two people who are much stronger than yourself because it was what was right. That right there is why you are worthy to receive such things. You are worthy of a lot," Odin said, his voice booming as he smacked his staff on the floor. "I thank you," Issei said softly before smiling at Odin. "I have so much more to show you how worthy you are. You my dear boy, I see as my own son right now. Is that proper? I am the Allfather. I can do what I please. Plus my own son Thor would back me up on this. Welcome to Valhalla my dear boy. This is also your home now," Odin said with a big grin. "Now come. A feast awaits you. You never had food until you've dined in a Valhallan feast." Issei walked beside Odin and they entered the large hall that was hosted within the palace of Odin, taking a seat at the large table next to Thor's seat, though he wasn't there at the time, and Rossweisse sat next to Issei. Odin coughed and smacked his goblet of Viking mead and ale. The table got silent, which was filled with about 50 people. "I don't normally like to make toasts, but today, I make a toast towards my newest son. Isseihyoudou. He isn't from our culture or our lands, but he's shown me that he is more than enough to be considered material worthy of Valhalla. I also want to congratulate my goddaughter Rossweisse on finding a wonderful man, and I approve of their marriage. To Isseihyoudou and Rossweisse," Odin said, downing his alcohol in which the others all cheered and downed their alcohol, though Issei and Rossweisse were not part of this. Issei stared at Rossweisse and she just blushed. "You and I have to talk," Issei said before downing his goblet of alcohol which magically refilled itself before Issei began to dig into the food. Rossweisse blushed and nodded before digging into her own food. The feast lasted for well over 2 hours, everyone enjoying themselves. Singing, talking, drinking and a bit of whoring as well. Women came to the table and happily threw themselves into the arms of the gods, which would include the goddesses who threw themselves. Valhalla feasts were quite the sight. Issei left the table and began to walk outside of the palace, only for Rossweisse to chase after him. "Issei wait. Please don't be mad." "I'm not mad," Issei said with a confused look on his face. "But you look mad." "That's just how I look," Issei said before smiling. "About in there, I had no idea Odin was going to do that. So what's going on?" "I want to be a devil with you," the Valkyrie blurted out. "Please. Okay. Please. I really want to serve you and be why wait okay. Yup. If you are serious about joining me, I have no issue with it," Issei said with a shrug. Well that's great. I shall do this before I leave to head back. Let you prepare yourself," Issei said with a smile before he began to fly into the air, heading towards the snowy mountains in the distance. Rossweisse quickly followed him, flying with magic before staring at Issei. "What's with you going this way?" "Your bed is with me," Rossweisse said. "Is it now?" Issei asked amused. "I don't even get a bed to myself." "Well it was Odin's idea," she said with a deep blush. "Well, you're welcome to join me in bed, but I plan on sleeping up there in the cold." "Why?" "Simple. It's part of my training. The cold and the altitude make it so much better to train in." Well, that would make sense if it wasn't for the fact that the mountain really isn't that high, plus the magic in this world kind of negates the altitude sickness. Oh really? Issei said with a pout, stopping in midair. Yes. That mountain is also the property of another, so it's not your call to go there. She said with a smile. Issei nodded and began to fly to the ground with the Valkyrie in tow. Why are we going down here? We can just fly home. Well, I figure that if you and I are going to be husband and wife, I might as well at least court you. Issei said with a teasing voice. The woman just blushed madly and stood next to him. I thought it would be a good night to just enjoy walking around. He said with a smile before he spotted a store that gave him a great idea. Can you wait here for about 5 to 10 minutes? I see something I really like in that store. I've also never been to Valhalla, so this is awesome. Issei said excitedly and ran off into the nearby store. Rossweisse just stood there on the street corner across the street. About 2 minutes later, Rossweisse was approached. So, out alone as usual. I see you took the advice of our great king and became a prostitute, though it seems you still can't get a man. Laughed someone dressed in similar armor to what she wore right now. The woman who laughed was a beautiful woman with long black hair tied into twin tails with much larger breasts than Rossweisse. She had green eyes as well. I'm not a prostitute. I'm just waiting here for someone. Rossweisse defended, only to get a snort. Waiting here for what? A man? What man would want you? You who failed at defending our king 2 months ago. One who fails at the chores, fails at doing anything right. The only thing you are good at is reading books. Look at me. The top Valkyrie, and guess who is right here with me? The woman snidely commented, only for the man behind her to hold her from behind and grope her breasts before lewdly kissing the woman's neck, who moaned in response. Oh Sigrid. She moaned out only to look at Rossweisse. That's right, that boy you crushed on in high school is all mine. The hottest guy in school is mine and touching me so. So what? Rossweisse said with a frown on her face and tears brimming in her eyes. I am truly here waiting for my friend. As if. You have no friends. You've been alone your entire life and you still are. Odin only took you in because he pitied you. That and your grandmother was Odin's favorite Valkyrie. You are a nobody. That's not true. But it is. Sigrid said. And who could ever want little Alyu? Smaller breasts, ugly hair, and such a whiny personality. Nobody loves you. He said with a snide smile. It was then Issei came from behind Rossweisse, appearing out of nowhere. Issei wrapped his arms around Rossweisse's waist before slinking a hand up Rossweisse's slender stomach and placing a rose right between her cleavage. The woman in question gasped at the romantic gesture and the feel of Issei's strong hands on her body. Who the hell is this? The snide woman said. I am her lover. Issei stated, noting that women seem to value strong male figures in their life. Her master. Her future husband. Issei said with a smile, gently placing kisses from Rossweisse's collarbone to her neck while his right hand gently snaked into her armor, rubbing her pelvis, though it looked like her hussy to the others due to his location. Issei was only putting on a show for Rossweisse's own needs. And who the hell are you? Sigrid stated, moving from the woman he was holding and stepped forward to Issei, who gently kissed away Rossweisse's tears before moving forward to Sigrid. Isseihyoudou, though you may call me the Scorpion. I am also one of Odin's own sons. So what does that make you, He asked, looking at the bitch of a woman. Oh, that's right. You are a nobody. She is the lovely fiancée of one of Odin's own sons. Issei said, gently pulling Rossweisse by her waist into his arms, walking away with her. The woman was on her knees now, completely shocked, but Sigrid wasn't as weak. Sigrid charged at Issei from behind. You little shit. You dare insult my woman. Let's see how you do without your own. He said, pulling out a sword and thrusting it towards Rossweisse's back and heart. Issei moved himself in front of the sword and took it in the chest, though it missed every organ and struck only an empty part of his chest. Issei gripped onto Sigrid's wrist and pulled him forward, pushing the blade deeper into Issei. You strike at a woman's back in order to hurt me? You are pathetic. Let me tell you why you bucked up. First, you decided to announce you would attack. Bad move. 2. You attacked with such sloppy handwork that a human would do better than you. Issei stated before he kneed upwards into the man's crotch, sending the Valhalla native to the ground, groaning in pain, though he looked up at Issei. Rossweisse was watching behind Issei, her eyes filled with fear and worry. 3. You weren't going to hit her in the right spot to kill her anyway. You would have hit a kidney, which since we are magical, would have been quite okay. 4. You had no idea who I am or what I am capable of doing. 5. You aimed for someone I care about. Issei said while he was pulling the sword out of his body before he decapitated the man without a second though. The head fell off of his neck a few seconds later due to the body finally collapsing to the ground. Issei threw the sword into the man's body and began to walk away with Rossweisse. About a minute later, Rossweisse stopped Issei and lifted off his shirt, revealing his chest once again to her. She began to heal his wound with powerful Norse magic, in which Issei just watched as his wound began to close and the pain began to vanish. "You shouldn't have taken that hit," the Norse woman said with a big blush. "Why not? He could have killed you. Rather it be me than you," Issei said with a sincere smile. Once Issei said that, Rossweisse just wrapped her arms around his neck and planted her lips onto his own, kissing him deeply, in which Issei took a few seconds but responded with his own, placing his hands on her hips as they kissed underneath the moonlight. Chapter 15. It was the 9th day of Issei's training, and it was about time for the feast that Odin loved to put up for dinner, which would be in a few hours. Odin, Issei, Thor, Loki and Rossweisse were all situated in a training center within Odin's castle. Thor and Issei were face to face, with Thor's Mjolnir ready for battle. Issei had his Excalibur floating in front of him. "Issei, I believe you have reached it. That sword has always belonged to you, even before King Arthur made that sword famous. I want you to merge with the sword. Become one," Odin stated from the sidelines. Issei looked at Odin and then the sword before he closed his eyes and let out his demonic aura, as well as the Norse aura that he had obtained. The sword began to glow golden with black and blue sparks flying off of the blade before it turned its point to Issei and began to thrust into Issei's chest. It wasn't as if the blade was cutting into Issei, but melting or melding into Issei. The sword disappeared in about 20 seconds, and as soon as that occurred, Issei let out a scream of pain as the holy energy within the sword began to fuse with his own body. He fell to his knees shortly after. Issei clenched his teeth and his fists as Excalibur and his body became in tune with each other, increasing the power of Excalibur as well as Issei. Rossweisse was worried for Issei as she could see he was in pain, but she was relieved as he saw him get to his legs, albeit shaking, before he stood tall. His eyes were still closed, but as his body finished shaking, his eyes shot open, and his brown eyes now had flecks of gold in his iris and pupil. His body also began to arc off electricity made out of holy energy. "A holy devil," Loki noted. "An abomination." Odin nodded. "Yes, this shouldn't be a thing, but I am glad it is," he said as the electricity began to be drawn back into Issei's body as he quickly got control. "Even if you hate your master, he surely made you into the perfect war machine. Anything given to you as a weapon you learn quickly how to use it efficiently," Odin stated as Issei flexed his muscles a bit, looking over his body as he could see the golden energy that would flow through his veins. His veins faintly pulsed gold. "I feel so powerful." "As you should," Thor said. "You merged with a very powerful weapon which only got stronger within you, and then you got stronger because of the weapon. Yet I'm not strong as you guys, am I?" "Not as strong as Odin or myself, no," Thor stated. "We are top 10 beings," Thor stated. "But you have reached top 40 for sure. Possibly top 30. Odin stated. "I believe you have reached equal power to that Azazel fellow. That includes all of the power you have gained during your training here. Your skill alone would make you a threat to Thor or I, though one strike from us and you would be dead," he stated. "Well, that's it. I know you want to brawl with your little brother here, Thor, but I believe it's time for Issei's go-away party," Odin said with a big smile. "The biggest feast ever," Odin said with a roar, heading off towards the palace. Loki and Thor followed him, and lastly was Rossweisse and Issei. Issei and Rossweisse have gotten extremely close since his stay. After the kiss the first night that Issei was here, Rossweisse has made it her goal to be next to Issei as much as possible. She bathed with him every time, slept in the same bed and ate her meals with him. She truly began to like him, if not love him, due to his kindness. Issei on the other hand wasn't simple. Issei doesn't know what love feels like, as for the most part, he didn't have the chance to grow up like normal people. He was a slave. A killer. A warrior for his entire life. But he does know that he wants Rossweisse with him in his life, just like he wants the others in his life. He would lay down his life for any of them without a second thought. Unknown to Issei, Rossweisse had planned to truly sleep with Issei, to become one with him. She had attempted beforehand with seduction attempts, but Issei was somewhat dense, or she just wasn't very good. 5 minutes later, they were all sitting around the large table when Odin stood up with his goblet of mead. "I have only spent 9 days with this young man, but he is like a son to me. Just like Thor and Loki, I love this boy dearly and think of him as one of us. I have seen many here get to know this young man and get along with him. He has become someone that I can trust with the future of our kind. However, come tomorrow, he must return to his people. We are sad to see him go, but he isn't truly one of us. He has ties to the devils. So, while we may be sad to see him go, let us wish him the best and give him our greatest feast yet," Odin said, in which Thor and everyone else cheered, leaving Issei to blush as the food magically appeared on the table. Issei, like the rest of the men in the hall, dug into the food with vigor, ravenous appetites devouring the meat and other assorted foods. Mashed potatoes, gravy, corn on the cob, steamed cabbage and many desserts were all in the reach of the gods and goddesses. Some of the gods, including Thor, were being fed by their women. Noting this, Rossweisse turned Issei to her, and before he could react she had shoved a forkful of meat and potatoes into his mouth. She had the cutest blush on her face, and she looked actually jealous. Issei ate his food happily and quickly pushed his fork of food into her mouth, in which she squealed in surprise. Issei grinned at her as he noticed she had a spot of mashed potatoes on her cheek. He leaned over and kissed her cheek, sucking in the food from her cheek as he swallowed it. She blushed madly from the affectionate gesture, feeling very close to the boy she fell in love with. She knew that he was from a different time and held different beliefs about many things, but she knew that she loved him and that she would do whatever possible to stay with him. "Hey little brother." Thor roared out. Issei turned and came face to face with a huge spoonful of mashed potatoes that flew right at him and smacked him in the face. Thor tauntingly drank down his goblet of mead as Issei wiped the mashed potatoes from his face and clicked his tongue before he began to drink down his own mead before he flung a spoonful of cabbage at Thor. Thor took the hit in the chest and snorted. "Weak throw brother, and here I thought you would be a god like us." Thor taunted only to get hit in the face by some mashed potatoes flung by Rossweisse, who grinned smugly from behind Issei. Issei had hit her behind him only for him to duck at the right moment for Rossweisse to strike. "Uo, using your woman to fight for you? How unmanly," Thor said, putting his elbow on the table. "Come on, show me what you got brother," Thor said with a laugh as his arm began to spark with lightning. Issei walked around the table and sat across from Thor and took his arm as well. Issei's arm sparked with his own holy lightning. Thor began to overpower Issei rapidly, though Issei quickly applied the power of destruction to flow from his hand outwards, giving him much more power which began to push back Thor's arm. Thor laughed and began to get serious, his arm flexing as he and Issei were now even, only for a bunch of mashed potatoes to be dropped onto Thor's head from behind Thor. Issei quickly took the advantage and slammed Thor's arm down, winning the bout. Thor wiped off the mashed potatoes, looking behind him only to see Loki placed a bowl of cabbage on Thor's head, so it looked like hair. "Oh my, look everyone. Lady Thor has come out to play," Loki said, which got a laugh out of most of the people at the large table. Even Odin was laughing. Thor tackled Loki and flew off into the sky with his brother, going off to do whatever between each other. Issei laughed and drank down another large goblet of the strong mead, turning to eat his food once more, though Rossweisse insisted she feed him and smacked away his hand every time he tried to feed her. It seemed Rossweisse was very much a submissive note at Odin. Lemon alert. Lemon alert. Beep boop. Lemon incoming. It was about 2 hours into the feast, and Issei was drunk. Like drunk. He was currently sitting on the table and in front of him was many gods and goddesses like Hel, Odin, Thor, Loki, Freya, Tyr and also Rossweisse. So, there I was. I stood in the arena covered in the blood of my enemies, and my comrades with the Emperor of Rome came out on the balcony. He hated my master even though I gave Rome so much and decided he wanted me dead. Out from the bowels of the arena came lions, tigers and even a bear. They were starved in the arena and that's why when they were released from their cages, they bolted for me. I tackled the lion from below, flipping him onto his back before I drove my sword into his throat. Then the biggest bear I've ever seen who was like this big, Issei said, standing up and putting his hands into the air to show off how big the bear was. Hit me right here, Issei stated, showing off the triple claw marks on the lower back of Issei. I flew across the arena and man did it hurt. I ended up cleaving the head off the two tigers in a single blow like whoosh. I then tackled the bear and began to pound its face in with my fists like bomb. Issei said as he began to act as if he was punching downwards. "Then what?" Thor said, hiccuping. Rossweisse wasn't drunk at all as she didn't like meat at all. "Then I wore the bear's head as a hat and waved to the crowd," Issei stated, putting on an empty bowl and doing a war cry to the empty spaces of the room. Everyone except Rossweisse was completely bucking drunk. "Bullshit. Bears, are the strongest things like ever," Freya stated, the queen of the Valkyries, raising her mug to Issei. "DSSH. That bear was weak sauce. I totally let him hit me too," Issei stated before falling down onto his butt. "Welp, I need to take a leak. I'll be back and we can play drink the mead from hell's belly button," Issei stated, getting up and smacking Freya on her bubble butt only for Freya to retort. "I ain't hell you dingus. Ack. Sorry Loki. Hick," Issei said as he left the feast. About 5 minutes later, Issei returned and stumbled to the table, only to find a few things different. Odin, Hel and Tyr were gone, probably headed off to bed. Freya was upside down completely naked with Thor taking a shot of alcohol from her hussy, doing a body shot. Even after sucking out plenty of the alcohol, Thor ate her out for about 10 seconds before pulling away. "Issei, your turn little bro," Thor stated with a burp as he began to push Issei towards the upside down Freya. "Hey," Rossweisse stated, getting a bit jealous. Thor turned to her and smiled. "Would you, rather be the one upside down naked having alcohol eaten out of you?" Thor said. "I rather Issei do it to me," she said quietly, though Thor heard her. Thor quickly moved to Rossweisse, and his hand began to touch the bottom of her shirt to help her out of it when Issei came and smacked his hand away. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't touch her," Issei said, gently poking Thor in his armored chest. Issei turned Rossweisse around and bent her over slightly before Issei smacked Rossweisse's behind, which Rossweisse moaned a but lewdly from the sting of his hand. "This is mine," Issei stated firmly, though since he was drunk it didn't have much effect. "Now if you don't mind," Issei said. "I am going to take her home to do with as I please," Issei stated, hitting her once more, getting another lewd moan before he picked up Rossweisse like a bridge and flew out, almost crashing into the wall due to how drunk Issei was. "You go get laid," Loki said with a cheer from the table before he passed out. Thor and Freya made out for a few seconds before Thor passed out in her breasts and she just pushed him off before she stumbled away, heading home. Issei was helped into her bedroom by Rossweisse, who was also rubbing the back of her head. Issei had flew into a wall and smacked her head into the wall. It was then Rossweisse took over the flying and guiding. Issei was gently laid in bed, who looked up at her with a drunken smile. "Very pretty," he said before he fell asleep. Rossweisse sighed and smiled as she removed her armor and laid next to him in her panties and a large t-shirt that was much bigger than her. It wasn't Issei's, but it was meant to sleep in for her, which was what she usually wore. She fell asleep with her head on his chest very shortly after. About an hour later, Issei found himself waking up to a very peculiar feeling. It was then he noticed that Rossweisse was licking his nipple while she was sleeping. Issei, no longer feeling the effects of the alcohol, looked at her and smiled a bit before he gently began to move her off his chest and onto the pillow. As soon as her head touched the pillow, she awoke and looked at Issei. She quickly moved and laid on top of him, enveloping his lips with her own, her hand stroking his arms as she was finally putting into place what she planned for a couple days now. "Issei," she said, looking at him with begging eyes. She had her crotch placed directly onto his own, her lower lips touching his underwear-covered crotch, while her legs were placed surrounding one leg. She was very seductive. Issei placed his hands onto her hips and began to squeeze her bottom, in which she moaned into the kiss. Her hands began to stroke his chest, stroking his pecs with happiness as he just rested his hands on her bottom. She noticed that Issei had no experience, just like Odin stated. Luckily, Rossweisse was a bookworm, so she learned quite a bit from her books. She leaned down and bit on Issei's left pectoral before she moved off of him and removed her large shirt, revealing her naked body to him. He's seen it many times before since they bathed together, but this time, Issei thought she was even more stunningly beautiful than before. He reached up and gripped her breasts, giving them gentle squeezes which got the silver-haired Valkyrie to moan in pleasure as she just let him play with her globes of flesh as much as he wanted. She was going to teach him the pleasures of the flesh, despite being a virgin herself. After about 2 minutes of groping, sucking and just Issei feeling her body up from the waist up, Rossweisse smiled happily and pulled down her underwear, revealing the moist lips that ached for him. Issei looked at her, and while he's seen many before in his past life, none looked as delicious and beautiful as the one before him. Remembering the feast and what Thor was offering, Issei tripped Rossweisse, who fell onto her back gently, her legs being lifted up and over Issei's shoulders and on his back as he was on the floor now. She felt his lips hungrily attached to her own, and she moaned loudly and lewdly as her hands tangled in his hair. She felt the touch of her lover on her hussy, and she felt divine. He was inexperienced, but it didn't matter to her. The touch alone made up for his gently teeth nips. Out of nowhere, Rossweisse found Issei hovering over her, his hick removed from its cloth prison, pointing straight at her lips as he kissed her neck. He was still slightly drunk, but cognitive enough to know what he was doing. She pulled him down into a fiery kiss, and with that, Issei inserted himself into her. She was very tight, and despite what the rumors stated, she had no virgin barrier. She was lubricated enough to not have any tearing. She moaned happily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he thrust it into her, giving her neck and collarbone kisses that lit small fires on her flesh as he continued to thrust into her gently yet powerfully. She felt the power he held within his body, thrumming. "Oh Issei, it feels so good. Please faster. Harder. Just make me yours." She moaned out lewdly, her head laying against the bed with her hair under her like a bed. "You were always mine," Issei said before he captured her lips in a kiss. Hearing his words, Rossweisse began to tear up, feeling the affection and feelings towards her. Her tears were kissed away, and it was then she felt his hips speeding up and beginning to slam into her, roughly pounding her, which she asked him to do, in which she screamed in pleasure, loving every moment of their embrace. It didn't take long from there for Rossweisse to clench up and have her first orgasm of the night. Feeling her release, Issei came second, filling her womb and hussy up with his hot seed, letting her moan out from how full she felt. Issei collapsed on top of her, his head resting on her bosom. "Oh, Issei," Rossweisse said, stroking his hair with a smile on her face. She was very happy. It took him a few minutes, but he finally moved and placed a tender kiss on the top of her chest, right above her heart. "Wanna go again?" Issei asked, in which Rossweisse let out a lewd smile. Yes, but this time, Rossweisse said, moving Issei gently off of her, who sat up and looked at her confused only to spot Rossweisse bend over the table in her room, spreading her cheeks open to reveal her dripping core. I am at your use. Issei grinned lewdly, and for 4 hours into the night, Issei used his lovely woman to his heart's content, not that Rossweisse complained. It was quite the opposite. She begged him to. Chapter 16. Issei found himself waking up to a foreign feeling that he didn't experience the night prior. He sat up and with that pulled his hips backwards, which pulled Rossweisse with him, who was currently attached to his hip, enjoying a morning treat. Issei sat there and looked down at Rossweisse, who continued her ministrations, despite the fact Issei had woken up and moved back, her right hand gently rubbing his inner thigh, while her left was placed on the bed for support. After about 5 minutes of this, Issei finally released his seed into her waiting throat, which she happily swallowed, though she let some remain on her lips. She looked up at Issei and licked her lips for him, letting him get the seductive picture of the innocent-looking Valkyrie. Good morning. Issei stated, raising a brow in surprise. Morning, Issei. Rossweisse said with a smile as she sat up and revealed her naked body, which had white streaks up and down her chest, her back, her face, her legs, and pretty much just everywhere. It was a reminder of the time they spent the night prior. Are you sure you wanted to give me your virginity? Issei asked suddenly, looking bit guilty. I know that women of this time treasure things like that. Rossweisse giggled and kissed Issei's limp tip before looking up. I wouldn't have been doing these things if I didn't want you. Rossweisse said. You didn't look like a pervert from when I met you. Funny, neither did you. Rossweisse said with a grin. I've always had an overactive imagination and I read a lot of different books, a lot of them lewd. So I've been waiting to have someone to let my imagination loose on, and I have you. Did you not want me? I wouldn't have done those things to you if I didn't. Issei said, mimicking her response. Rossweisse giggled and stood up, stretching her body before gently rubbing her inner thighs and her breast. I'm so sore. All your fault. Hey, you wanted to keep going after the second time. Issei defended. If I'm not mistaken, you forced me several times to continue. He said with a grin. What can I say, I enjoyed myself. She stated before going into the shower, in which Issei followed her. It was about half an hour later when the two exited the shower, due to another round of carnal pleasure due to Rossweisse being a bit feisty. When they exited, they sat down in the dining room of Rossweisse's apartment within Odin's apartment. It was the 10th day and it was the day of the meeting between the three factions. They were eating some cereal and toast with juice and quiet when Issei looked through the window and into the sky of Valhalla. I enjoyed myself here, it's really nice here. It is. Rossweisse said with a big smile. We are known to keep our people here very happy, one of the happiest mythologies. Do you still wish to leave here and come with me? Issei asked, giving her a way out. I don't want to take you from such happiness. I want to go with you. I already slept with you and I love you. I am willing to stand by you through everything. So will you make me a devil? I sure will, but don't you have family? My only blood relative is my grandmother Gondal, which I suppose should have been someone you would meet, especially how overprotective she is. Rossweisse said, blushing in embarrassment. Yes, I should meet her before we do this and before we leave. Issei said, finishing his meal. Then let's go now. Rossweisse said. I'm sure she will like you. It took them about 10 minutes with flight to arrive in the countryside, arriving at a small shack in the middle of nowhere. As soon as they landed, an older lady exited through the shack with a big smile, opening her arms towards Rossweisse. It's good to see you, Lil Rose. Gondal said with a big smile. Granny. It's good to see you too. I'm sorry for not visiting in the past couple weeks. A lot has happened. I heard that Odin sent you to work in a gentleman's club as a prostitute. Gondal said, narrowing her eyes. He didn't mean it. You know how he is. Rossweisse said. Plus he got punched twice for it. She said with a fond smile. Did he now? I'm assuming the one who punched him wasn't you and is dead. Gondal said with a laugh. Rossweisse shook her head and looked over her shoulder at Issei, who stood tall with his hands behind his back. Issei here is the one who punched him. He was also the man I met at the gentleman's club. Oh, I see. So you are the one who took Rossweisse's virginity at the club. Gondal said, getting a bit angry and approaching Issei. Issei bowed his head towards the older woman. It is a pleasure to meet you, Gondal. Rossweisse speaks about you with fond memory. I am also afraid you have things incorrect. Well, I did take her virginity, it was only last night. She offered herself at the club as part of her job, but I ended up forcing her to quit. It was there I punched Odin and stood up to him. Issei said, looking down at the older lady. You have manners. I like that. Gondal stated. So you are Rossweisse's fiancé? No. Issei stated. Marriage was never discussed. He stated. We just care for each other greatly, which is another reason why she came here. She wants you to know about it. He stated. Gondal turned to Rossweisse. Are you sure about this man? Gondal asked. Yes, Granny. I love him greatly. He's a really good man, but you know this, I suppose. she said and crossed her arms. I will allow you to see my granddaughter as long as you keep her safe and happy. I will do those things and more. She will be happier than she ever was. Issei stated. Which is why I also came here for another reason. She wishes to join my peerage and become a devil. She wants your permission. Granny, I want to join him and be with him. He is not of our kind, but he is better than any man I have ever seen. Even Odin doesn't compare to him. She said proudly. Plus he is also Odin's son now. So please, will she be happy? Gondal asked, looking at Issei. As happy as I can make her. I can't promise that every time will be a good memory as the world is rough. But I will wipe away her tears with my kisses and my thumb. I will make sure that she has a smile on her face every day that I can. I won't promise that she will be protected forever, but I will promise that as long as I draw a breath, no one shall touch her. No one shall hurt her. You may go. Gondal stated. If this is your wish, then I will support it. If you hurt her devil, I will kill you. And I shall accept such fate should I harm your daughter. Gondal nodded and Issei pulled out the rest of his pawn pieces, walking over to Rossweisse who laid down on the couch. Issei placed 2 pawn pieces over her heart and closed his eyes, only for Rossweisse to moan in pleasure as the devil powers became one with her and 2 wings flew out of her back. Issei, Rossweisse said with tears in her eyes before embracing her. I will be by your side come rain or sunshine. I will be with you. You do know what that entails, don't you? You know what my past is and what I am more than likely going to keep doing. I do. I will be by your side and help you. She said with a smile before a magic circle appeared nearby. It was Odin. Alright my son. It's time for you to go. You are running late and I fear there is some chaos going on at the meeting. Odin stated. Quickly. He said, in which Rossweisse donned her battle armor and Issei brought his 2 gladiuses to bear before they walked into Issei's own magic circle. So you are the one who told my granddaughter to work as a prostitute. Spoke Gondal with a menacing tone. Odin gulped and slowly turned around, looking at the older woman who was known for her wrath. Pain was coming. Issei and Rossweisse arrived in the schoolyard, though far enough away that they weren't detected, but they could see and hear everything. This was too easy. Spoke a male voice that Issei remembered from a long time ago. It was a voice that filled Issei with so much rage and hatred that his eyes began to cloud with the golden specks of Excalibur. Rossweisse noticed that change in Issei's demeanor and walked next to him. When they turned the corner, they saw that the school was heavily damaged with a huge chunk of wall missing. Michiel, Serziches and Grafia were holding up a magic bubble around Rias and the rest of Issei's peerage. There were some injuries, but Issei noted that they were not dead. Azazel was currently floating in the air, holding up his light spear towards a woman that Issei also recognized. Give it up, Azazel. You may have the white dragon on your side, but even he is tied up at the moment. Our forces are relentless. Azazel noticed something in his peripheral vision before he gave her a big grin. You know, you are right that my white dragon may be tied up, but he's not the only force on this field that can stop you. Oh please. No one here besides the dragon and the others can even stop me, and they are busy protecting their pathetic family. You are nothing and you are doomed. Kateria stated before sending a huge ball of black demonic energy. It was then massive amounts of blue magic circles formed a barrier between Azazel and Kateria, which also absorbed the demonic energy. The devil woman looked around and noticed that she was inside of a magical cage. Who goes there? The Scorpion. Spoke Issei's old master Julius. Him, he's alive, who released him. That would be me. Azazel stated as Issei approached the 2 devils and the 4 bodyguards of Julius. Well, it was a group effort. He's been released and he's been hoping to run into you too. Enjoy. Azazel snidely stated. Issei growled angrily and turned to Rossweisse. Keep the man still so I can dispose of him when I am done here. As you wish. Rossweisse said with a grin before flying off into the air. I've been hoping I would run into you one day. Vengeance will be mine. Issei said with a snarl, the grip on his swords tight. Oh please. Kateria stated, getting her smug attitude back. Kill him. She said, looking towards the 4 gladiator-looking warriors only for a humongous wave of white light to blast over them and annihilate them in one go. What the? I. Issei said, appearing right in front of her out of nowhere, punching her right in the face with his cestus-clad right hand. The cestus was the first boxing glove. It was basically a large amount of leather wrapped around the hand with spikes, nails, blades where the knuckles and fingers would be on a fist. It wasn't a super popular weapon, and while it lacked the range of a sword, it was able to take a gladiator down with a single strike. Kateria slammed into the barrier before her wings got her back into the air. You are using holy, she screamed in fury, holding her face which hid the indents of his weapon, as well as her face was sizzling. How is that possible? The sword you took from Julius was known as Excalibur. I was the original wielder. Issei roared, disappearing once again with brilliant speed in which he appeared right in front of Kateria, who couldn't even react as his fist rammed right into her gut, forcing her to puke up blood and bile. Issei didn't stop there and grabbed her by the back of the head and her crotch before he tossed her face first into the other side of the barrier. The barrier was shaped like a colosseum. You are just a lowly devil," she stated, forming many magic circles before launching several large balls of black energy. Issei erected a large magical shield which took each hit like it was nothing before he disappeared once more and decked her in the face, forcing her back up against the barrier. Issei quickly pushed into her and began to pound into her chest, each strike breaking several ribs. "Ah!" Issei screamed in fury as he completely destroyed her ribs, grinding her bones into dust with each strike of his dual cestices. He then shoved his fingers into her body in which she screamed in pain, only for Issei to reach his second hand in. She was attempting to remove his hands from inside of her body, but he lifted her up by holding her spine before he snapped her spine, forcing her to be paralyzed before he ripped her body in two from above his head. Her blood rained all over his muscular body, giving him a sort of blood tattoo. "Ah!" Issei roared in fury as he thumbed in his chest in victory before he walked over towards Julius, who was caged up by Rossweisse's own magic. "No, this can't be how it ends," Julia said in fear, beginning to struggle once more against Rossweisse's magic. "You tortured countless people, treated them like they were toys, and you think that this isn't how it ends for you? You will die," Issei said with venom. "Without me you wouldn't be where you are. You would be somewhere in Africa working on a farm. Probably dead in a ditch with no one to care. I at least cared for you. Even your great strength came from me. You were the cruelest of them all. Even other masters said you were the cruelest of them all," Issei snarled. "I was forced to kill my own friends while training because they were too weak to you. You stomped on my scorpion pets because you didn't want me to get sentimental. You even promised to find my parents only to kill them. That's right, I found out that you had them killed to keep me indebted to you. You will pay," Issei said, rushing straight at Julius with extremely rage and pain in his eyes, only for a white ball of energy to strike Issei, who barely smacked it away with his left cestus, which was his sacred gear. Issei stood still as his head began to turn up towards Volley, who was flying in his balance breaker. "I am afraid I cannot let you kill him as he is still important to our needs," spoke the white dragon. "I knew you were going to betray us from the very beginning," Issei said with a snarl. "He did, and he warned us, which is why we allowed him to skip school and go train," Rias stated with a smirk. "Just to beat you?" Sona added. "We knew all along," Akeno said with a giggle. "Oh really now?" Volley said with a laugh. "Yes," Issei said with a glare as his eyes now turned completely gold as the golden electricity began to spark off of his body. Chapter 17. I knew all along you would betray us. Issei's body had golden electricity arsing off of his body as if he was a power conduit. "Your attitude worried me when I met. I know people like you. Just like my master, you seek more and more power in order to enjoy yourself. My master only cared about himself, and the same goes for you." Impressive. Not even Azazel could figure out that I would betray him. "You are fascinating," Volley said, charging at Issei after disappearing from sight, only to appear with a right hook. Issei simply raised his left arm and blocked his hook with his right hand, in which Volley's eyes under the mask were widened. Issei never had this sort of power to block the strength like this before. "Weak," Issei stated. Volley swung his left hand in a jab only for Issei to block once more with his right before Issei slammed his left hand down and grabbed onto Volley's right wrist before smashing Issei's electric-clad forehead right into Volley's faceplate, which cracked. Issei then pulled his fist back and decked Volley in the faceplate, which was shattered. Volley sent out a powerful blast of energy towards Issei, but Issei ducked underneath the power which struck the school, which lost another large chunk of the wall. After the ducking underneath Volley, Issei leapt into the air and slammed his knee into Volley's chin, which staggered the dragon, allowing Issei to grab onto Volley's shoulder, bringing in Issei's right knee into Volley's armored gut, which penetrated the armor, doing damage behind it before Issei brought his elbow back into Volley's throat. With that, Issei did a roundhouse kick into Volley's armored chest, shattering the armor and sending Volley flying. Issei moved towards Volley, his presence demanding attention. "You are very fascinating," Volley stated, spitting out blood. 10 days ago, you weren't even a threat to me, and now you shattered my armor in seconds with your bare hands. So interesting," Volley said as he stood up and regained his armor before he flew into the sky in a bolt of white light, which began to arc over his body. His armor gave him much more power. Issei noticed this and was ready. When Volley disappeared from vision, only thing that resembled him was a white lightning bolt. Issei disappeared in a golden one before the two of them would begin to clash in the sky, thunder being heard each time, which formed powerful shockwaves that would crack the earth and destroy trees. "This is dangerous," Serafal stated. Surziches formed a larger barrier to encompass the school, and Azazel went back to assist with the barrier. "That kid had trained insanely to get this kind of power," Azazel said. "I wonder where he went." Rossweisse was currently nearby holding Julius hostage, but she had moved underneath the barrier. Rias walked over to her and stared at her. "Who are you?" Rias asked. I am Issei's newest pawn. She stated. I was one of Lord Odin's Valkyries and I am also granddaughter to Gondel. How did he find you? Where did he find you? I cannot reveal this information at this time. Rossweisse stated as she turned her attention to the fight above, which was a stalemate. He was wielding Norse magic. Azazel stated. It's not too hard to guess. He said with an evil grin which only got Rossweisse to glare at the fallen angel. He met Odin. Serziches stated. Odin trained him. I recognize that magic circle power. He said with a nod. It seems Issei has some new and very powerful friends. He said with a grin. Mitchell frowned. I hope that Issei isn't leaving the three great factions. That would be a blow too powerful to us. Up in the sky, Issei finally got the better of Vali and slammed Vali into the ground below before Issei roared in fury and came down with his right leg outstretched to hit Vali, who dodged the attack. Issei's foot collided with the earth in an explosion of dust and lightning. Vali laughed happily, only to dodge by the skin of his teeth as a wave of golden lightning swept towards him, only to strike a few trees thanks to the dodge done by the dragon. The trees were ripped apart and the roots were torn away by the strike. This is utterly exciting. Finally an opponent worthy of me. Vali roared, throwing out a large ball of dragon energy which struck Issei right in the chest, but Issei had launched his own attack, which was a ball of golden energy which struck Vali in the chest as well. Issei was sent flying across the field into the barrier set up by the powers, while Vali roared in pain as his body was electrocuted. This is holy power. Vali said with a groan, before he shook his head and gained his bearings. That would have killed you if you weren't wearing my armor. Spoke Albion. I see. Then I shall not let this advantage get away from me. Vali said as he launched at Issei, striking Issei in the jaw, who was getting up finally from hitting the barrier. Divide. Spoke the jewel which halved Issei's power. However, during this, Issei had grabbed onto Vali and slammed him behind Issei, shoving him up against the barrier. Issei pushed in and began to hammer away at the armor, his fists forcing Vali up against the barrier, who attempted to block. You dare threaten my family and friends because of your boredom. You think that this gives you the right to do as you please. You abuse your power in order to enjoy yourself, but you don't care what happens to others. Issei snarled out as he aimed his fist back and sent it in an uppercut right into Vali's chest, which completely shattered the armor. However, Vali's right hand revealed a large ball of dragon energy, which was punched into Issei's chest, who was sent skidding across the field. You think you can lecture me, Vali said, appearing above Issei, delivering a right hook into Issei's face, who was set right back into the ground. Vali kicked Issei in the stomach, forcing him into the air, only for Vali to give a left jab into Issei's chest and send him flying into Issei's own barrier. You who lives in the past, I never once threatened your friends. Vali stated, grabbing Issei by the throat before body slamming him on the ground. I only have a wish to fight the strong. You threatened them by joining forces with the Cows Brigade. Issei stated, tackling Vali, who was picked up and thrown onto Issei's shoulder, who charged with Vali before slamming him up against the barrier of the leaders. Issei followed up with a knee into Vali's face mask, which was shattered. Both of them had blood coming from their nose and mouth, dripping down their chest, though only Issei's chest could be seen with the blood. Oh please. If I wanted to kill your friends, I could have helped Kateria. Vali said as he uppercutted Issei in the jaw before headbutting him in the chest and sending him stumbling backwards. I have no interest in world domination. I only follow them because of the chance of fighting strong opponents. This does not excuse anything. Issei said as he tackled Vali onto his back and placed his knees onto Vali's arms before Issei began to pound away at Vali's mask with his right hand, holding down his chest with his left. Vali's nose broke quickly and Issei continued to pound away, Vali no longer able to fight. You deserve to die. Issei snarled with venom. As he continued to pound into his face, blood poured more and more out of Vali's nose and mouth, only for Issei to now begin to choke Vali. Issei stared right down into Vali's face, his eyes full of nothing but rage. Vali weakly reached up and tried to pull Issei away from his throat, but Vali was too weak. Azazel came from behind and gently tried to move Issei off of Vali, only for Issei to remove his hands from Vali and punched Azazel in the gut. Stay out of it. He said with a snarl as he returned to choking Vali, only for a large stick to smack Issei in the face, sending him into the air before the stick came around and smacked Issei in the gut. Wow, you got defeated, Vali. Almost died, guess I get to save you this time. Spoke a laughing male. Iku. So you are with the Cows Brigade. Azazel stated, brushing off his gut and shoulders. Yup. It just felt right, plus Vali here saved my life. Going to follow him for a long time. Biku said, Vali leaning against his shoulder, bleeding heavily. Issei roared and charged at them, his two gladiuses spawned, but Azazel grabbed onto him and held him back. Issei began to struggle, but Azazel had a good grasp with his arms behind his back. Issei watched as Vali and Biku disappeared. Azazel released Issei, who turned and placed his swords against Azazel's neck, his mouth twitching with blood appearing on his lips. You traitor. Issei said with anger, his eyes completely taken over by black and gold specks. Issei. Calm down. Akeno stated, coming over and wrapping her around Issei, hugging him. He isn't the enemy, calm down. This isn't you. Please calm down. Akeno said, kissing his neck and hugging him tightly. Issei removed his swords before he threw the swords towards Julius, who was kept still. Julius was struck in the gut, both swords embedded inside of him. Julius coughed up blood and looked at Issei. As she said, calm. I am very calm. Issei stated before he ripped both swords up and pretty much cleaved his body in two as the swords went from his gut, up his chest and through his head. The swords dispersed into mist before he walked into the school and headed for the gym. Where is he going? Surziches asked with a brow. Shower. Kaneko said, sensing Issei who went to the showers in the gym. Surziches sighed and watched as all of their troops began to reappear through magic circles and the barriers set up by Issei and Rossweisse finally disappeared. This is a mess, but it's salvaged. Surziches commented. At least everyone is alive. Michiel replied. Issei is going to feel horrible. Irina stated. Why? Serafal asked. Because he wasn't here to protect us. Zenobia stated. Ah, Issei. Good to see you are alright. Surziches said with a warm smile. Yay. Issei said, sitting on a chair that miraculously made it outside in one piece. So what now? I'm ready for bed here, so what is next for this meeting? What is this meeting exactly? We're making peace and I feel like we all here are in agreement. Azazel stated. We just wanted to get a word from you about what you want in this world before it's final. What I want? Issei stated. Sleep. Issei said with a small smile and a chuckle before he stood up. Well, to be put it frank. I just want to live with my family and friends that I have here in Kuo in peace. I want them to be safe and sound. There is a catch: if anyone is caught hurting my friends or attempting to, they get no mercy from me. The price of this transgression is simple. Issei stated, summoning both his sacred gear balance breaker and Excalibur before he slammed them down hard into the broken table. Death. Issei took his seat back down. Since I know that you guys would have no interest in bucking with my friends or family, you have no need to worry about me but them. Those who attack, they will all die. Azazel chuckled. I think we can all agree here he's no threat to our peace. If any, he's our trump card for it to succeed. Agreed. Surziches stated. I concur. Michiel said. Michiel turned to Issei and smiled. Well, Scorpion, we will not have peace between us. We thank you greatly up in heaven for your work. Before. Issei said before he let out a big yawn. You go, can I have a request? Issei asked, looking up at Michiel from his chair. As long as it is within my power, anything. Well, it's a few things if that is alright. Issei said, looking him straight in the eye with seriousness. Anything. We all owe you our lives many times over. He said with a smile. One, do not call me Scorpion, please call me Issei. If we are to be comrades or even friends, then I wish to be called by my real name. Issei. That would be my pleasure, Issei. Michiel said with a smile. 2. I wish to visit heaven in the near future and see if Excalibur can get even stronger. I am fused with Excalibur, which is why you saw those holy electric powers of mine, but if I can get the sword stronger, then I become stronger. My final wish is also kind of a second parter to my second wish. I can come up with a way for you, a devil, to come to heaven. Michiel said with a smile. What would be the final wish of yours, my dear boy? And can you please allow Irina and Zenobia to start praying again? I know it would mean so much to them. Zenobia and Irina gasped and both blushed from his kindness. Michiel gasped a bit as well, though out of surprise, before turning to the two former exorcists. Well, ladies, is that the truth? Yes. It is the truth. Even though we know God is dead, praying gives me comfort. I even have my old Bible I carried around. I would love to be able to read it again. Irina said, tears in her eyes from the kindness Issei was showing. Once again, Issei was selfless. Zenobia nodded. It does for me as well. How adorable. A bond between believers of God who are devils in heaven. Serafal said with a giggle. Michiel, is this possible? Can you do it? Perhaps this can be a symbol of our peace. Surziches asked. Yes, I can, and I seriously doubt two devils who don't receive damage when they pray will be the end of the world. Issei moved forward to Michiel and put his hand out. Michiel took this hand and Issei held it. You are a very respectable man, like most people that I have met in this world. I appreciate your kindness in fulfilling my requests, and I will be here when you need me should the time arise. If you are in need of anything, you come to me and I shall fulfill it if it is in my power. Michiel smiled and shook Issei's hand. I will keep that in mind. We are all in your debt and forever will be for the things you have done and will do. You are strong, brave, kind and selfless. You could have made requests for your own benefit, but you have made everything for others. For this, I will always be around to assist you should the time arise. Michiel said before he began to teleport away. I shall return to heaven and get to work letting those two pray. Give it a few hours. Michiel said with a smile. Thank you, Chief Michiel. Irina and Zenobia said in unison. As for me, I think I shall stay around this town. I have begun to really like this place. Oh? Issei said, raising a brow. You should ask me first as this is my territory. Not yet, it's not. Akeno said with a giggle. Rias still owns it and by that, Serziches owns it. Akeno stated. Serziches shrugged. He can be of great help with your sacred gear or even training you if needed. Serziches said with a shrug. You will get along just fine. Serziches said, but Issei just sighed before he let out a loud yawn once again. Well, if that's the case I'm going to bed. Issei said, waving his arm lazily before he teleported home, in which he stumbled into the circle, which meant he also stumbled right into his bed. Issei fell asleep almost immediately upon hitting his pillows. Chapter 18. Issei woke up a little later than usual and found himself alone in his bed. He stood up and walked over towards the bathroom, only to find out he was in a new bathroom he has never seen before. He was confused for a moment, but just started to draw a bath as he was too tired and sore to do much thinking. The events from the night before with Vali and the others, with how quick he was to anger, and how quickly he was able to bring his swords to bear on Azazel. Am I really that much of a killer? Issei thought solemnly. Is this my only purpose? Is this all I can be? Issei said out loud to himself. Is what all you can be? Spoke a voice who entered the bathroom and knelt down next to the tub. Issei jumped slightly and turned his head, spotting the voice. It was Akeno. Oh hello Akeno. Issei said with a small smile, though she could see it was faked for her. Issei. Akeno said softly, laying her head on his arms, snuggling into him a bit. You're not upset about not being here in the beginning of the meeting, are you? I am upset about that, but that's not why I am down right now, Issei said quietly, beginning to stroke Akeno's dark black hair. Then why? What do you mean by is this all I can be? Akeno asked, looking up at the boy she had a major crush on. I'm a killer. A murderer. I was bred to be a killer. Everywhere I go, I bring death. Is this all I will ever be? Akeno sat up quickly and brought her hand up to smack his face, but he held her wrist, looking at her. Look at me. Everything I ever do is kill people. I was brought up to be a gladiator, which meant I killed people in the arena. I come back after being locked away and once again I am killing people. This is all I am, isn't it? This is why I will never feel love. This is why I feel so lost. I am just meant to kill people. That's my purpose, isn't it? Issei cried, yelling at Akeno. Issei was going mad and Akeno knew that he was suffering. Akeno quickly climbed into the tub, ignoring the fact she was clothed, and she hugged Issei tightly, hugging his head to her bosom tightly. He screamed into her flesh and she rocked him, letting him get the rage and pain out. Akeno stroked his hair softly, feeling him shudder as he cried against her flesh, against her body. She just let him cry, let him feel something instead of hiding everything from the others. She let him mourn the losses he suffered, the lives he had to take. She let him mourn the fact that he never experienced a childhood and all he's ever had to do in life was kill and survive. The girls were supposed to be the ones to give him a happy life as they promised, but they have not. They brought them into a world where he has to kill once more to survive. Oh Issei, I'm so sorry. Akeno said, hugging him tightly as she felt him move into slumber, his body going still as he fell back and went to sleep in the tub. She kissed his forehead and climbed out of the tub, her clothes completely soaked. She undressed and placed the clothes on a rack to dry before walking out of the bathroom completely naked. Upon exiting, Rias entered and she immediately narrowed her eyes at Akeno, who looked at her. I didn't sleep in with him, he had a mental breakdown. Akeno said, looking down. What happened? Is he okay? Rias demanded, but Akeno put her hands up. He's sleeping now, Akeno said. Please be quiet. As for if he's okay, he's alive, but he's coming to a point where he's questioning himself. He is questioning his purpose of living. Why would he be doing that? Rias asked. He is questioning his purpose as all he has ever done was kill people. Rias, we're supposed to be making his life better, but everything is the same. He's continually killing people just like he did when he was just a child. Rias looked down. We never thought of him and what all of this was doing to him. No, we never did. We all thought he was happy because that's how he was on the outside, but he bottled everything up. Killing his old master and Kateria gave him a sense of peace in terms of his past, but now everything is being put into perspective. He almost killed Azazel as well. He is suffering. Then we have to make sure that even if this war happens, we can make it so that Issei is kept happy. We need to keep him happy and sane. Rias stated, looking at Akeno. I have business with him with Michiel, as you know. I will take him on a date as well afterwards. Akeno stated. If we are going to do what is right. Neither of us can be jealous of the women in his life. Akeno said, looking right at Rias as Akeno was getting dressed. I know. Rias said quietly. I want him next. Rias said with a smile. You can have him when I am done with him. Akeno said with a wink as she left Issei's bedroom with Rias, going to the kitchen. It was about 4 hours when Issei woke up. This time he found himself waking up in his bed, despite knowing he fell asleep inside of the tub. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, looking around the room as he hunched over his lap before he stood up and walked to the dresser and the mirror, getting dressed in the next day's clothing. Issei saw his own reflection, and all he could see was a disgusting monster. He punched the mirror right where his face was, shattering the mirror before he roared in anger and slammed his hands on the dresser. When his hands collided, a piece of paper flew into the air and gently flew in front of him, which he caught. "Issei, could you please meet me at the shrine in the town at the top of the mountain? I would really appreciate it." Akeno. "Great. Guess I'm off to kill even more people. Will this nightmare ever end?" Issei thought bitterly as he left the house as it was dawn. The sun was barely over the horizon. About 5 minutes later, Issei was halfway up the shrine. He was wearing white shorts, a white t-shirt and a small red blazer that was open. He had his hands in the blazer's pocket. "Ah, there you are, Issei. My apologies for the sudden invitation. It's fine. Who's my target?" Issei asked bitterly. Akeno narrowed her eyes a bit. "No one. You aren't here to kill anyone. You're here because you are needed to be here." Akeno said, her tone getting a bit cold towards him before she smiled. "Now, follow me please." "Good to see you again, Issei," Michiel stated, appearing from the heavens in a golden light. "Michiel, is there something you need?" Issei asked. "No. I am here to give you something that you were supposed to get before the meeting, but it's better late than never," Michiel said with a smile. "Follow me into the shrine, would you? There's a powerful holy presence in the shrine," Issei noted as he followed Michiel in. "Indeed," Akeno stated. "Michiel and I were working on something for you. A sword. He wanted to present the sword to you before the meeting as a sign of goodwill, but you were away." "You're aware I don't need the sword, right?" Issei asked, raising an eyebrow. "Doesn't mean we can't give it to one of our peerage members. Since the sword is yours now, you can pass its ownership over," she said with a smile. Issei nodded and Michiel turned around, showing off the sword that was hovering before him. "This here is the sword known as Ascalon. It's like a mix between my Excalibur and my sacred gear. It has anti-dragon properties," Issei noted. "But it does. It's killed many dragons and it's gained a fearsome reputation. It isn't as powerful of a holy sword as Excalibur, not even close, but it's still formidable," Michiel said with a smile. "I was hoping you could take it and give it to one of your peerage members as a goodwill gift from the angels. We angels already received information on the evil pieces system and information about the sacred gears Azazel has been studying. It is now our turn to assist and we already gave things to the fallen. If that is your wish, Michiel, then I will do so. I will find the perfect wielder for this weapon," Issei said, bowing to the angel seraph. Michiel smiled and began to teleport away. "That is all then, Issei. It was a pleasure seeing you again. I hope to see you next time when we talk about countermeasures for the Cows Brigade," Michiel said, disappearing completely. But that gone, Issei stood up and moved towards the exit but stopped when he thought about something. He turned around and stared at Akeno for a few moments before he spoke. "Akeno, can we talk?" "Absolutely. What about?" Akeno asked as she was cleaning up the tea and the table from Michiel and her chatting. "The Kabiel said something about you. Said your father was Barakiel or something. Isn't he a fallen angel?" "Why yes. It means I am also a fallen angel," Akeno said, her expression and tone very sad. She stood up and revealed a pair of wings. One wing was a devil and the other was that of a fallen angel. "Mismatched wings. I grew up hating my angel side, so I jumped at the chance to become a devil when Rias offered. Just to spite my father. Maybe it was my half-breed blood, but the result was a sad mix of the two types of wings," Akeno said, only to gasp when she felt Issei hug her from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist. "That's enough, Akeno. There is no more reason to continue going down this path of sadness. I think your wings are beautiful," Issei said, releasing Akeno, who turned to him, only to see him grasp her fallen angel wing gently and kiss the tip. "It's a wonderful set of wings for a wonderful woman. I've watched to tell you for such a long time," Akeno said, tears brimming in her violet eyes. "But you hate fallen angels. They almost killed you and killed everyone you know," she said softly. "It's not hard to know what you think about them." "Well, that is where you are wrong," Issei said, hugging her fallen angel and her devil wings to him, nuzzling them against his face. "I don't hate anyone race. If I did, I wouldn't ever be happy with a devil as they were the worst people to me. Humans too. Akeno, even if I did hate fallen angels and devils, that doesn't change the fact that you are Akeno. I don't care who your father was, who you were born as. You couldn't make that choice for yourself. I could just be high." "No. There is no way you could convince me you are a bad person," Issei said, interrupting her. "Oh, but it's true, Issei. I am a terrible, terrible woman." "Bullshit," Issei stated, releasing her wings as he stood in front of her, looking down at her. As far as I am concerned, you are easily one of the greatest women I have ever met. I don't deserve much in my life due to what I have done and will do, and I certainly do not deserve to have ever met you or get to know you the way I do. But I have. I have gotten to know you, and I am very happy to have met you. Look at you. You are absolutely beautiful, Issei said, wiping away the tears from her eyes with his thumbs. You are kind, generous, smart, and you are a gorgeous young woman. You're strong, and even now, you are humble. You think of yourself as an evil woman because of your heritage or the fact you are a sadistic woman in battle, but I don't see that. I see someone who has been kicked down in life, and whenever she gets up, she kicks herself back down. I don't want to see you do that. You are an awesome young lady, and it was one of my greatest pleasures in life to meet someone like you. You can stop worrying, you say such sweet things, and what is a girl to do? Akeno said, a tear freely falling down her left cheek. It was then she gasped in surprise as she felt lips attached to her own. Issei was kissing her of his own free will. She cried a few more tears as she wrapped her arms around his neck, deepening the sweet kiss from the boy she loved. When he released her lips and kissed her cheek, she couldn't help but cry a bit more tears. Oh, Issei. She said quietly, only to feel his lips kissing her tears away. I may not know what love is, but I feel butterflies in my stomach whenever I am near you. It just got worse for me, and I couldn't help but kiss you. I really like you. Issei said with a smile. Akeno smiled and jumped into his arms, hugging him tightly as she wrapped her legs around his waist, crying into his shoulder. She was so happy, and Issei just let her cry out of joy as he sat down and held her. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.